You already know someone like this. Not the smartest person in the room. Not always the hardest worker. Not the one with the most credentials hanging on their wall. But somehow when they're gone, everything quietly falls apart. And here's the part that should unsettle you. Nobody planned it that way. Nobody designed it. It just happened. Which means the inverse is also true. Right now, somewhere in your life, in your career, in your relationships, you are either that person or you are not. And the disturbing thing, you probably don't know which one. There's a version of scarcity that economics teaches: supply and demand, fewer goods, higher price, clean, logical. But that version misses something, because the most irreplaceable people alive don't control supply chains, they don't own rare resources, they don't even have rare skills most of the time. What they have is something harder to name and far harder to manufacture. Here's what the research actually shows. In a 2003 Cornell study on organizational behavior, researchers found that employees perceived as irreplaceable weren't statistically better at their jobs. They weren't more educated. They weren't more experienced. They were simply more entangled. Entangled in decisions, entangled in relationships, entangled in institutional memory that existed nowhere else. And that word, entangled, is where this gets psychologically dangerous. Because entanglement isn't something that happens to you. It's something you engineer, consciously or not. Every organization, every relationship, every social structure runs on what sociologists call nodes. A node is a point where information, decisions, or trust converges. The person who schedules meetings is a node. The person everyone calls before a big decision is a node. The person who remembers why the process works the way it does, also a node. Nodes are not labeled. They carry no official title. No one assigns you the role. But when a node disappears, the system stutters. And here's the mechanism that most people, even intelligent people, fundamentally misread. They think irreplaceability is built through performance, do excellent work, become necessary. But performance is visible. Visible things get measured. Measured things get standardized. Standardized things get replaced. What cannot be replaced is not excellence. What cannot be replaced is position. The node doesn't produce the best output. The node sits at the intersection where everything meaningful passes through. That is a categorically different kind of power, and almost no one is intentionally cultivating it. Robert Greene wrote about this obliquely in the 48 Laws, but he framed it as manipulation, as strategy, as something cold. That framing is wrong, or at least incomplete, because the psychology underneath it isn't about control, it's about something far more primal. Humans are profoundly loss-averse. Kahneman and Tversky proved it empirically in 1979. Losing something feels roughly twice as powerful as gaining something equivalent. Which means the person who could be lost is psychologically twice as valuable as the person who could be gained. Let that architecture sit for a moment. You've been building your value on the gain side your entire life. Better skills, better results, better outputs, all framed as additions. But the irreplaceable person has unconsciously, or very deliberately, colonized the loss side of the equation. Their absence doesn't just reduce output, it creates a psychological hole, a negative space that people feel viscerally. This is not charisma, this is not likability, this is structural psychology operating at a level below conscious awareness. And there is a specific mechanism that produces it. There are three forces that make a person structurally irreplaceable, not strategically, structurally. The first is asymmetric knowledge. Not expertise. Everyone has expertise. Asymmetric knowledge is contextual. It's the understanding of why this particular system, in this particular environment, with these particular people, works the way it does. It can't be Googled. It can't be transferred in an onboarding document. It lives only in someone's head, accumulated through time and proximity. The second is relational custody. There are relationships with clients, with colleagues, with external partners that run through a specific person rather than an institution. Remove the person and the relationship doesn't transfer, it dissolves. The custodian of those relationships holds a form of leverage that no title can confer or strip away.
The third is decision archaeology. Every organization, every team, every marriage is built on accumulated decisions, most of them undocumented. The person who remembers why the budget is structured this way, why that client gets special treatment, why the process changed 3 years ago, that person holds the institution's memory. Memory, in organizational psychology, is power. But here's the uncomfortable edge of this. These three forces don't come from working harder. They come from paying a different kind of attention, from asking different questions, from choosing very deliberately what to accumulate. And the deeper you go into this, the more you realize something about yourself that most people refuse to acknowledge. You have been, your entire career, your entire life possibly, optimizing for the wrong variable. Not because you were lazy, not because you were unaware, but because the variable you were told to optimize for, skill, performance, output, is the one that's legible to institutions. And institutions reward what they can see and measure. But what they depend on is something different, something they can't fully see, can't fully measure, and discover only in its absence. There is a word in psychology for the gap between what we think we value and what we actually depend on: functional fixedness, the inability to perceive something outside its obvious role. Institutions are functionally fixed on performance. They evaluate you by what you produce. They have no language for what you hold. The irreplaceable person has understood, consciously or instinctively, that what you hold is worth more than what you produce. This is not a cynical position. It is not a manipulation. It is a recognition of how human systems actually work underneath the language of meritocracy and performance reviews and skill matrices. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. More than that, you begin to see the moments in your own past where you were almost this. The project where everyone came to you before going to anyone else. The relationship where your specific understanding of someone was irreplaceable. The role where your institutional memory held everything together. You had it, and then you moved on or were moved out, and you left it behind without recognizing what it was. That's the real cost of not understanding this psychology. Not the career damage, not the salary gap. The cost is invisible. You've been giving away the most valuable thing you build without ever knowing its name. Here's what almost no one says about scarcity. It isn't just about becoming hard to replace. The people who are truly impossible to replace, not just valuable, but psychologically irreplaceable, they have a quality that cuts in the opposite direction. They are generous with what they know. Not because they're naive, because they understand something subtle and counterintuitive. Sharing knowledge deepens the relationship to it. The person who teaches the context also becomes the authority on the context. The person who gives the relationship also becomes the custodian of it. Scarcity, at its highest level, is not hoarding, it is presence. Presence so specific, so textured, so embedded in the particularities of this situation, these people, this moment, that no generalized version of you could substitute. The copy is always the copy. The original is always the original. And the original is not defined by capability, it's defined by irreducible specificity. Which means the question was never, how do I become more skilled? The question was always, how do I become more specifically myself in ways that accumulate, compound, and cannot be replicated? Before you go, if something in this video landed differently than you expected, if you caught yourself thinking about a specific person, a specific moment, a specific version of yourself you left somewhere, drop it in the comments. Not because engagement numbers matter, because that recognition, that moment of seeing yourself clearly in something, is exactly the kind of awareness this video is about. Name it, make it real. And if this is the first time you've found this channel,
The work we do here doesn't live on the surface, it goes underneath, into the psychology of how people actually operate, how systems actually work, and what most people never stop long enough to see. If that's the kind of thinking you want more of, subscribe, not to fill a feed, to build a different kind of attention. The next video goes even deeper. There's a Japanese concept called ma. It roughly translates to negative space, the pause between notes in music, the void between objects, the silence between words. Ma is not emptiness, it is the shape that everything else is built around. The irreplaceable person is ma, not the loudest voice in the room, not the most visible, but the negative space that, when removed, causes everything else to lose its shape. You cannot become ma by trying harder. You cannot become ma by producing more. You become ma through the slow, deliberate accumulation of presence, contextual, relational, memorial.
And here is the final uncomfortable truth. Every single day, you are either building that presence or diluting it. There is no neutral position. The world is not waiting for you to be ready. Right now, in your professional life, your relationships, your creative work, you are either becoming more specifically, irreducibly yourself, or you are drifting toward a version of you that systems can recognize, evaluate, and eventually replace. The choice is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It is made in small moments of attention, in the questions you choose to ask, in what you choose to remember, in whether you are present enough, long enough, in the specific enough way that your absence creates a shape nothing else can fill. That shape is your value, not what you produce, what only you leave behind.